Hello everybody, this is Havoc and welcome to my Total War 3 Kingdoms review. We all know it's been 4 years since our last major historical title, which means that 3 Kingdoms has a lot to live up to. This review will be a little different than my normal ones. In an effort to keep this under a typical Let's Play episode length, I'll do some summarizing on parts that I think are straightforward and elaborate on the not so straightforward. Plus, it is my goal to bring several guide videos to the table that will be mechanic specific, so if you're wanting details on the more summarized parts of this review, just wait for their guided counterparts. As always with Total War titles, I did receive this game for free in exchange for creating content. This will not have any influence on the opinions and information stated in this review, though I am very grateful Creative Assembly provided me with early access. I must emphasize that our build is not what you'll be playing on release, and the 3 Kingdoms team has already told us that they are addressing some of our feedback. Hopefully that means the build you have the privilege to play on launch will have those things fixed. With all that out of the way, let's dive in. Starting with one of the biggest factors in any game for me is the UX and UI, or the user experience and user interface. A game's ability to display coherent information for players to access is crucial, and the design behind displaying that information needs to fit within the theme of the game. In one of these areas, the game is successful. Total War 3 Kingdoms looks fantastic in almost every single aspect of the game. The campaign map is detailed and articulate. You have animals in forests, birds flying around, people chopping wood in lumberyard settlements or farming in farm settlements. The ink spread effect throughout the game works very well. The community finally convinced CA to color in the freaking unit cards, which is a big design victory in my opinion. Commandery layouts, buildings, resource icons, it all blends extremely well into the game and it fits the theme 100%. However, in all of that thematically great design, there are some not so well executed user experiences. Mainly in the area of unit stats, they're just a mess. Everything, and I mean everything, is icon based in the extended mode. Without hovering over each icon, there's very little that you can comprehend just by looking at these stats. A guy that looks like he's swinging a sword? Oh, that's morale. Oh, okay. A gold sword thrusting? I guess that makes sense that it's armor piercing? The issue is that it is not immediately clear, and I have to take extra steps to figure it out. The condensed version only shows a few of the supposed better stats to see, but I'd rather all of the stats be like that on the side. It'd look fine, and Warhammer has proven that it will look good and be quick to see stats effectively. So in this rather large area of the game, you know, battles and units and stuff, the user interface looks great and fits within the theme. The user experience falls a bit flat. Now, as for the rest of the game, there is a lot to take in. If your first game was either of the Warhammers, then you're in for a big shock. Even for historical Total War veterans, if you've never touched a grand strategy game, you'll be in for at least a surprise. There are so many more factors and considerations in 3 Kingdoms, you can get easily overwhelmed. And while this may seem as a negative, Creative Assembly has implemented a brilliant way to help you out. Hitting F1 or the I button at the top right of the screen will toggle the info overlay. The info overlay will take whatever is on your screen at that time and point by point tell you what you're seeing. It's like they knew there was a crap ton of stuff to look at in this game. It is an insanely smart move by Creative Assembly to help you not get overwhelmed, and I highly recommend every single person that plays this game to spend some time using this info overlay throughout all the menu parts of the game to get everything sorted out. For those who may just wing it, I guarantee you there's going to be something you'll miss crucial in your campaign. You're going to wonder why it happened, and then when you just could have taken some steps and some time with the info overlay. There's absolutely no shame in doing so, and I still look at it every once in a while when I've had the build for weeks. Sweet Lord, we are finally on to the next section. The economics of 3 Kingdoms is one of its strongest points. There are several things that go into it, and it shakes the usual system up a bit. For instance, food is absolutely vital. While there are farmland settlements that provide gobs of food, you could still build the land development buildings in your main city. But the food production is minimal, certainly not sustainable. It's significantly better to just take farmland. Your taxation is directly tied to population, so knowing how to keep your population high is important. Your trade influence is a factor that determines the profit of trade agreements, and it's something you can directly influence. Having too many employed characters can completely drain your income, so as you can see there is just so much to it, and it creates a very fluid, dynamic flow to it all, which I really enjoy. The economy of Total War has never really been in depth in my opinion, but in Three Kingdoms it certainly gets there, and understanding it will make for a much more successful campaign. Commanderies are simply relabeled provinces for those who didn't know, but they're also one of the stronger points in the game. We've never really had so much to provinces in the past, but we now have administrators, assignments, taxation, food generation, public order, food reserves, population, location effects, fertility, and a lot of other facts to consider. I'll emphasize again, please use the info overlay to figure this all out, or you could watch my video. It is no longer just placing buildings and hope you get the most out of it. Building specialized commanderies is 100% the way to go. Your building chains are broken up into the more easily understood sections, with their effects more easily laid out. There are 2 sets of agricultural chains in your main settlement that support your farms, and by support I mean they really support them. The same goes for industry as well. You can assign characters that would have like an industry boost of 75%, which is a waste in a farmland commandery, but massively important in a mining focused commandery. There is a heightened importance to commanderies now, and it makes for some very influential campaign strategy gameplay. I was very excited to see what population does in Three Kingdoms, and for the most part it did not disappoint. As mentioned already, population directly affects taxation, but it also influences replenishment percentage, construction time, and even public order. Several building chains affect population growth positively or negatively, so keeping an eye on your total growth is very important. Failure to do so will destroy your campaign. In one of my playthroughs, my income continually plummeted and I couldn't figure out what was causing it. Turns out I was losing 85,000 people a turn in 2 of my commanderies due to reserve shortage and bad building decisions. I inadvertently caused a genocide of 2 million people because of my negligence. Morality aside, this is just a video game after all, it caused a slamming halt to my campaign as I had to disband units or building queues to counter the income loss. While that is fantastic to have such an influential mechanic, I can't help but feel like it's a bit incomplete. I have 2 million peasants, but no middle or upper class? You're telling me that my heavy halberd infantry, my elite soldiers, are replenished by mere peasants? Considering the attention to detail in almost every part of this game, only having 1 population class seems like a massive oversight. The Rome 2 DEI mod has multiple populations, of which you can pull from when recruiting or replenishing. That system should be in Three Kingdoms. I'm not saying it's an easy mechanic to implement. I don't know the coding required to pull that off, but I don't see why economic building chains in your main cities shouldn't build up a middle class. Government or learning chains should build an elite class. If there's one mod that I am hoping can get created for this game, it would easily, hands down, be a multiple population mod. The tech tree for the main factions and the scroll system for the Yellow Turban Rebellion is a very well designed rework of the tech system from previous Total Wars. No doubt taken in part from the Warhammer style of unlocking tech, both are focused on the elemental system, with tech affecting certain aspects of your characters and your empire. While you can certainly spread out your tech across the board, finding what element your specific faction excels at, through either faction specializations or even just through what element most of your generals are, will give you an advantage over the competition. A 2% in replenishment doesn't really affect my campaign. Plus 2 public order is pretty meh. Now, a 40% increase income from Silk and Spice, man, that's nice. So maybe just some tweaks on a few of the techs in a future patch or something to that effect would be sufficient. Finally, we're getting into some of the really good stuff, what's been pushed the most by Creative Assembly as being revolutionized from previous titles, diplomacy. And it has indeed been revolutionized. The additional treaties available in Three Kingdoms creates a fantastic bartering system like we've never seen in a Total War game. The bartering meter itself is something we've always needed, and I'm immensely glad we have it. I've been regularly using it to gain extra income or develop some treaties I wouldn't have known how to create otherwise. These options in the new system, I can very clearly understand what it will take to accomplish the goal I'm seeking, even if that goal is to literally give everything I have to get to that acceptance point. But it goes a little deeper and a much more simple than a bartering system. What this also creates is the ability for the AI to interact with the player more than ever. Looking back at previous Total War games, outside of just treatise options or trade agreements, the AI had no real reason to engage in any sort of dialogue with the player. The addition of food as a resource, accessories and followers that can be traded, even marriage, It's all ways that allow interaction, something Total War fans have been craving forever. I personally don't care that they adopted a version from some grand strategy games. It is no direct copy and paste, and the system in place works so well in the context of the game. It's hard to get an AI to act like an actual player in strategy games, and the system is just one small but significant step towards that. Battles and armies in Total War 3 Kingdoms are a bit of a conundrum for me. In terms of combat speed, there were certainly some very fast battles, usually in open field combat situations or where one general in romance mode was extremely overpowering and just stomped the other side. But in both modes, I noticed that given any other conditions, battles were decently slower, or at least they felt slower, especially with larger armies. This is a nice change of pace considering how quickly battles have become of late. That being said, there's some work to be done. Balancing is one of them. Archers currently shred your units, some infantry units are able to run down my cav. I tend to auto-resolve sieges because towers are sniping beasts, but that is getting fixed, so I guess that's a good thing. I also tend to auto-resolve any battles if I'm up against a legendary character if I don't have one on my side, as I would almost always lose no matter how many more troops I had. In one of my campaigns, I ambushed Lu Bu with an army 3 times bigger than his. I played that ambush 5 times and lost every damn time. Lu Bu would just absolutely decimate my army. Now, that could be attributed to poor general skills, but as a self-proclaimed decent Total War player, I don't think my strategies were that incompetent. It's just a shame, as fighting these legendary characters in romance mode should be highlights to my campaign, not something I want to turn into a quick moment of auto-resolve. Unfortunately, it doesn't end there. While synced animations have drastically improved, the desync bugs are still relatively prevalent. Both heroes and units will swing at or through other units without any reaction in return. A cavalry unit will sometimes charge through and surround an enemy unit, which just looks absolutely fantastic. But other times, if one horse in the unit reaches the enemy, it will cause the entire unit to stop dead in its tracks. It's the same problems Total War has suffered for a while now, and in 3 Kingdoms, again, it's better, but it still needs a lot of love. Battles also just lacked, battleness? I don't really know how to describe it. I fought some really amazing battles. Battles that I shouldn't have won, or I came from behind to scratch out a win. Some of these battles have been campaign changing and propelled my empire into greatness, yet something's just lacking. I don't get that excited about most battles, and to be fairly honest, the biggest reason I play battles are if the auto-resolve says it'll end in defeat, or if I know I'm going to need more units after that battle than what the auto-resolve is telling me I'll get. Maybe it's the fact that across my campaigns, I've had maybe 4 to 6 followers that have unlocked formations for my characters. 95% of my battles have been formationless. I don't get to shield wall before charges hit me. I've used a cav wedge formation in one campaign since I've started playing. And for anyone who's played any historical Total War title, the formations are where it's at. To not have formations, I guess it's just really boring for me. And I'm coming back to this script a day later, a few conversations later, and another thing that I believe is definitely one of the reasons for a lack of enthusiasm is that I don't feel tied to my units. It's a problem Total War suffered for a while as well. I feel for my heroes, as I don't want to lose them and their skill sets, but my units I could honestly care less about. Total War has talked about a synergy between units and generals of the same color and retinues, but there's nothing I can clearly see where synergy is taking place. I should see without digging if my yellow commanders are buffing my yellow cav with increased speed or anti-fatigue, or maybe if my blue strategist is giving his retinue archers a very specific synergy boost to, armor piercing power. All these characters have skills that do this to their entire retinue, but nowhere do I see the synergy buffs to color-specific units, and that's a problem for a game so focused on the Chinese elements and implementing them across the game correctly. Let's go ahead and move on to something a bit more exciting, characters. As we know oh so well by now, this period, especially from a romantic standpoint, was all about the characters. And we've seen so many videos on them by now, they better dang well perform. Well, they do. The current opinion of a faction very much depends on the reputation between its two leaders. Rivalries are generated through battles, Generals that have a deep relationship will provide each other buffs in battle, like boosts to armor, anti-fatigue, even constant morale buffs to all their retinues. The interaction between the characters in this game is very well done. Now, as for attributes, I don't think there's really anything that's changed from previous Total Wars. We still have personality traits, campaign events that buff aspects of their characters. Adding accessories, horses, armor, followers, and skills just further develops them in positive ways, and the best part is that it's pretty clearly labeled and designed to give you that information quickly, again referring to the UI and UX of the game as mentioned earlier. Skills for the characters has a bit of a hang up for me, not so much in the, well, yeah, in the effects a bit. The skill trees for these characters should be pretty focused on whatever color that general is, meaning we should have 5 very specific skill tree sets. Instead, we have a connect the dots scenario with a hugely wide range of skills that just don't vibe and make sense. My Sentinel does not need a strategist skill, since I most likely won't be employing ranged in his retinue. What he needs is more purple buffs to his retinue to make him a freaking wall of nigh unbreakable units. And sure, I could just pick the ones I want from this scenario, but eventually my only choice is to allow my retinue to have a ranged armor piercing buff that I'll never use. Just doesn't really seem to make some sense. The satisfaction of my characters is not something that had so much impact for me, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. If anything, it means that the things I did were simple, quick, and effective. I think satisfaction and the mechanics behind it are much more, dare I say it, satisfying than loyalty has ever worked in past games. I'm always more for ranges of a 0 to 100 scale than I am for a 0 to 10. There are of course a lot more factors that contribute to it for sure, but that doesn't make it hard to understand or use to its fullest extent. One thing I really love about characters is the ability to hire and or release them within the game. Having a range of characters to consistently be able to pull from is nice, and it's not just a bunch of potentials within your own faction as in previous games. Now that could come back to bite you in some scenarios with a spy system, but overall being able to choose characters not just from your family or your specific faction gives you a bit of freedom, and that you don't have to have a limited pool to choose from in your campaigns. The court system is another fantastic part of Total War 3 Kingdoms that brings in all sorts of potential to your empire. The old offices system in games like Attila worked well enough for what they were, but in 3 Kingdoms it's immensely more diverse. When assigning positions, you're doing more than creating an increase in income for a certain city or generating a tiny bit more happiness that the office provides. Each character, based on their traits, will provide their own unique additional positive or negative traits to your empire or to a specific commandery. You can really take advantage of this on top of specialized commanderies to create some powerhouse provinces. Not only do these characters provide you with something, but you can use the court system to bring up the satisfaction levels in your more discontent followers. Nearly all of your characters will provide decent benefits to being in these offices, so if you have some that aren't very happy, you'll be able to see if an office will help do the trick. I mentioned that satisfaction wasn't a hard thing to manage for me, and this is definitely one of the reasons. One of the biggest aspects of Total War 3 Kingdoms is the 2 different campaign modes, Romance and Records. The difference between the two is primarily seen on the battlefield. Your heroes are no longer so heroic, units fatigue at a much faster rate, and your heroes are surrounded by an elite guard. There are some specific events that won't trigger anymore as well. Having dug into the Records modes a bit, I've noticed a significant tonal change to the campaign. Heroes still have all the accessories and benefits of the Romance mode, but there's a bit more weight to them in a different sense. Obviously, with 240 men surrounding you, that is a certain set of weight. Yet without the fantasy buff buttons, without the duel system, it's just grittier, more impactful in ways, and I miss that in recent Total War games. I'm completely okay with playing the fantasy side, but I'll definitely be playing the Records mode every once in a while just to shake things up. So my final thoughts are as follows. It is my opinion, after close to 50 hours of gameplay, that Total War 3 Kingdoms has the best campaign map mechanics in any Total War game. It's a bold statement, yet all aspects of what we see on the campaign map keep me tied to playing this game on so many levels. It's complex, the AI for the most part works extremely efficiently from diplomacy, army movement, negotiating, conglomerating. The economy is not stagnant, nor are the characters you're dealing with. The map is just stunning, I love the tech layout, commandery building chains look great. The interaction that this campaign presents goes beyond anything I remember doing in previous Total War games. But the battles, man, the battles just need some work. The bugs, desynced animations, the lack of unit importance and loyalty, it's just not there. It's almost as though Creative Assembly was so focused on creating the best campaign experience we've ever seen, something we've been asking for forever, and kind of just forgot about battles. They flipped a bit, and now it's a bit awkward in some ways. I know it'd take quite a bit of work to fix the things that need fixing, but those fixes needed to happen a long time ago, and if this game had those fixes, sweet lord, it would probably be the perfect Total War game. All that to say, had I not received a pre-release copy of Three Kingdoms, I would still buy it. Guys, I really can't explain how fun the campaign map side of this game is. It is worth the downside of battles every time. I've never been eager to engage in diplomacy with the AI. I've never really had the focus to build my economy so specifically. It is just a blast to play. Frustrating at times, a lot of the factions that have a very hard starting difficulty are truly pretty difficult, and I've definitely started several campaigns over because of the difficulty in them, but that's okay. I love it and I try again. Guys, I know I've left so much out of this review. With the Yellow Turban Rebellion DLC content, I didn't have much time to create this massively in-depth review that's 45 minutes or an hour long. What I didn't touch on in this review either wasn't important to me or I wasn't able to interact with enough to formulate an opinion. Topics I did touch on, briefly or otherwise, are the ones that resonated the most with me in my time with the game. Hopefully you'll understand, and it can be supplemented by the steady release of guides and faction spotlights I'm looking to make for the future. Now it's time for you though. What do you think about Total War Three Kingdoms? Do you agree with my overall review? Do you have any counters? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you're still looking to get the game and live in the EU, check out the link in the description and use the code provided to get a good chunk off the game before the game goes live. Thank you incredibly much for checking out my Total War Three Kingdoms review. Do hope you enjoyed it regardless of what you think about the game. Be sure to rate the video, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with games and gaming tech news, reviews, and guides. Check out my Patreon and my new Amazon store to help support the channel. This is Havoc, and I'll see you in the next one.